Hello everyone and welcome to the greatest Russia versus United States chess match that ever happened. That of course is not true, but it is a pretty great one. It's Sergey Karjakin versus Sam Shankland, and this is their shorter rapid game. So yesterday, if you guys were following all the action, Karjakin was able to bounce back and he was able to win a classical game. Shankland took the lead by winning the first classical game. Then again, Shankland took the lead by winning the first rapid game. Then Karjakin retaliated by winning the second rapid game, and now we are in the quicker rapid games. So now we have two of those, and then we go into blitz section and then into Armageddon if needed. So this is the first game of the quicker rapids, and Karjakin has the white pieces. Let's check it out. It's quite the game. So with the white pieces, Sergey opens with e4. We have c5, Shankland feeling, well, feisty. We have knight to f3 and d6 now. We have d4 and c captures on d4. Knight captures and knight to f6. We have knight to c3 and a6. So just a normal Najdorf Sicilian. And now h3, preparing the Adams attack. We have knight to c6 and now g4. We have g6 by black. Queen to b6 is the most popular move here. G6 is what Shankland goes for. We have bishop to e3, and now knight captures on d4. And now not bishop captures, but queen captures on d4. It's a very tricky move. So here, as the time on the clock is not as abundant, Karjakin is testing Shankland's theory knowledge. So here we have bishop to g7, and now no moves here are queen back to d2 and queen to b4, because you don't really want your queen stuck here on d4 with the knight able to move just anywhere, but instead we have e5, and it is now already, as of move 10, that we have a completely new game. So what do you do here? It's quite a tricky move. You don't capture the pawn, that's for sure. If you capture the pawn, white can just trade here and go for a queenside castle, deliver check, and you don't really have any good squares. I mean, white will be better regardless of what you play. Let's say you play king to c7, we can play g5, take away the d5 square, so we can grab it for our own knight to d7, and now knight to d5 check. Going after the e7 pawn, and now if the king defends it, just bishop to b6 check, and that's it. If you capture, well, then knight just captures, opens up a discovery, and you're going to lose the rook. And if you don't capture, it doesn't really matter. You're going to move the king, then knight c7 check, again wins the game. So very tricky stuff if you actually go for the pawn. So after e5, Shankland of course goes knight to d7, and now queenside castles. We have bishop captures on e5, grabbing the pawn, and now queen to d2. So what's the idea here? The king is still in the center of the board, and he has to decide whether to castle or to keep playing with the king in the center. But with moves like bishop to h6, h4, h5 coming, it's not all that pleasant to castle king side here. So for the moment, Shankland leaves the king in the center. He plays queen to a5. Now with ideas of maybe, well, if the knight moves, I can capture on a2. I can even eliminate the defender of the a2 pawn and then capture, so maybe something good can happen here. But Karjakin just plays knight to d5. He says, you're more than welcome to capture on a2. And it's a really tricky move, because it was not played in the game. If queen captures on a2, then we're threatening queen to a1 checkmate. But now we're going to play queen to b4. You don't get anything by this check, because then king attacks the knight and also threatens checkmate, so you're lost there. You have to move the queen, create some breathing room for the king here, and now rook to b8. So we're not going to allow this check to pick up the rook, but still we're going to play f4, attack the bishop, bishop g7, and now this bishop to a7 move, and it's, well, if you know your stuff, then white should get some sort of an edge here, and Karjakin definitely knows his stuff as he prepared for this. So let's say queen a1 check, king's going to move king d2, we're going to capture on b2, queens get traded off, captures, and now let's say rook to b1, attacks the bishop, and after the bishop moves, now we don't even have to capture the rook, we can play bishop captures on a6, and well, there's just so much in the position here. Bishop captures, we're going to play bishop captures here, and if you look at the position, black is up 3 pawns, but white is up the exchange, so not bad. But instead, after knight to d5, Shankland doesn't go for the a2 pawn. He says, all right, let's trade queens, because, well, next game I'm white, so I'm gonna push for a win there. We have rook captures on d2, and now king to d8, not allowing knight to c7 check. We have f4 attacking the bishop, bishop to g7, and now bishop to g2. So nicely placing his bishops here. We have a5. Shankland needs to figure out how to develop here, because you can't castle, you can't just put your light square bishop anywhere, you can't push this pawn because you open up this diagonal. So he wants to play rook a6 and rook to c6, which is possible, but maybe not all that great. So here we have a4, and now what do you play here? Well, we have bishop to a6, but now he allows Sergey to activate his light square bishop even further, and that's by going to the starting square. Bishop to f1 attacks the rook, and now you could go back with the rook, but then you really accomplish nothing. So here we have rook to c6 and the bishop to b5, trapping the rook here, but now just h5. He's willing to give up this rook to activate his position a little bit, but Karjakin not interested. He just closes the position with the g5 on the king side. We have h4 and now rook to e1. So now if the bishop moves, there's going to be an attack here from the rook and the knight on the e7 square, and now knight to b8, trying to do something, trying to activate a little bit, hoping for bishop captures, knight captures to activate the knight, but there is one move that simply shatters all hopes and dreams for Sam in this game. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this really cool idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, bishop captures on c6 is a fine move, but we are always looking for the best move when I ask you to pause the video. So for those of you who found bishop to a7, congratulations, that's the correct idea. So now we're attacking the knight here. There's no way to defend the knight, and well, you have to play something. If you just move the knight to d7, then we capture on e7, and black here really does not have a move that he can make. So instead, after bishop to a7, we have e6 challenging the knight here, but now it's a pretty forcing line. Now we capture on c6, knight captures, and now bishop to b6 with check. So the king has to move. We have king to d7, and now the knight could come to c7, but here we have knight to e3, and it's a really tough position for black. He can't really activate anything. Here we have king to e7, but now bishop to c7, going after the d6 pawn. So knight to d4, blocking the rook's attack to the pawn here, and of course you can't just play this because then knight to b3 check just wins the exchange. So here rook to d3, moving the rook out of the way, and now we are threatening this c3 move. So bishop to d7 first by black, and now not going for anything like c3, but knight to d5 with check. This is even nicer. King to e8, and now comes knight to f6 with check. So what do you play here? If you go king to e7, we can just pick up this pawn on d6, and that's super unpleasant because now after king captures, this knight is no longer defended. Rook captures on d4, and you just fall apart here. And after this knight to f6 check, we have bishop captures on f6, g captures on f6, and now comes knight to f5. So the knight now on a pretty pleasant square, but it doesn't matter. Bishop captures on d6. And there's no way, again, for black to activate any of his pieces. If you capture on d6, which is fine, just rook captures on d6. And again, nothing to do here. If you try rook h5, just rook d1 wins the game. You're either losing the bishop, or if you move the bishop, this is just checkmate at the, to follow. Let's say you capture on a4, we're going to play rook to d8 with checkmate. The pawn covers d7 square. So here we would have to play rook to d5, but then we just happily trade it off, captures, and this is now a winning endgame. Even though you capture here and you can kind of push to promote this pawn, it's not enough. Rook captures on a5, bishop g2, and we are very much in time. King d2, h3, now we just deliver check. King moves rook here, and then we guard the h2 square, and our position is winning. So after bishop captures on d6, we have king to d8, and now comes rook e to d1, preparing to move the bishop and then do a lot of damage along the d file. Bishop captures on a4, hoping that you don't have a good discovery, but there is always a good discovery most of the times in winning positions. So bishop to e7 with, well, sort of a triple check here. King to c7, and now bishop to d8 with check, trying to pick up this rook here. So here we have king to c8, but now once again, pause the video. Feel free to pause the video here and try to find the absolutely quickest way to win the game for white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the mating net. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's of course bishop to b6. This is what Sergey played, and it was in this position that Sam Shankland on move 35 resigned the game, and with it his dreams of winning the FIDE World Cup and maybe even qualifying for the candidates tournament. So really impressive stuff. There is no defense against the rook to d8. We'll just check. Rook captures and the other rook delivers checkmate. There's no way to defend this, regardless of what black plays. So really awesome stuff. And as this was the first game of the quicker rapids, the second game was kind of a draw, but Shankland needed to win, so he continued pushing, and then Karjakin also won the second game. So really awesome stuff. Tough luck for Shankland, but great stuff for Sergey, who is, well, one step closer to yet again qualifying for a FIDE candidates tournament, but maybe, of course, even winning the World Cup. So I think Carlsen will now in the semifinal face Duda, and Karjakin will face Fedoseev, so we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Jaroslav Lubelski, Matthew Benoit, Vlad Loaru, Lu Studios, and Dario Pavlovic for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE World Cup until it ends. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.